While it should be clear that I'm quite impressed with the combat system in this game, there is one aspect in particular that I have to say is exceedingly poor. This is the auto-lock function. By clicking R3, you can set your camera to lock onto and follow a given enemy. This can help you track a mobile enemy and ensure that your strikes directionally go towards the locked-on target without manually having to calibrate your camera with your character's location and orientation. While this sounds good in theory, in practice it is often a mess. For starters, the auto-lock seems to toggle, oftentimes with little rhyme or reason, from one target to another. This can be particularly problematic if you are set to kill a given enemy only to switch to another out of range. You not only miss the attack on the first enemy, but are wide open to their counterstrike in the process. Even more confusing is that there doesn't seem to be any logic that prioritizes enemies that are either closer to you, attacking you, or have the potential to damage you. I've had situations where a mini-boss in an open field will be leaping toward me to attack, and suddenly my camera will focus past that enemy onto a harmless bird perched on a rock 100 yards away. Now, instead of having my camera focused on the leaping behemoth to help me guide my evasive roll timing, I'm looking at a bird that literally can't even attack me. Even worse, I've had my auto-lock target things beneath floors or beyond walls that my character shouldn't even be able to see. The only remedy for this is to cancel the auto-lock by hitting R3, reorient your vision towards the enemy you wish to lock onto, and reactivate the auto-lock. This takes precious seconds and can be the difference between killing an enemy, avoiding an attack, or taking fatal damage. Other games with auto-lock will typically keep you focused on a given target until you manually trigger a shift in focus by hitting left or right on your D-pad, for example. This ensures that you don't focus on a trivial target and gives you a reliable and quick way to shift focus to a higher priority target by clicking one button instead of a few. Why it doesn't work that way in this game is a mystery to me. I've heard it theorized that the creators intentionally made auto-lock bad to punish players who used it and reward those who are able to manage without it, and based on how bad it is, I can't completely disregard this theory. The trouble with foregoing auto-lock for inexperienced players is that not only do you need to orient that camera to the enemy to make sure your strike hits, but you have to take into account how your character is oriented to your camera. For example, if I'm looking east at an enemy but my character is actually facing southeast, even though I align my camera with the enemy, my character will still miss. So while some people have gotten used to, and good at, making sure their character and camera are well aligned, or focusing more intently on the character orientation versus the camera, it's pretty unrealistic to expect a new player to be able to do so effectively. Lastly, certain large or bulky enemies will have multiple lock-on spots. For example, I might be able to lock onto a dragon's midsection, head, wing, foot, etc. This can make it so that even though you're in relative proximity to an enemy, where simply swinging straight ahead would result in you hitting them, when your camera happens to auto-lock to a higher or further away section of the enemy, you may actually miss despite being very close. This effect is exacerbated by the use of short-ranged melee weapons. For this reason, once you get better and more practiced at combat and managing your character and camera, I would go so far as to recommend not using auto-lock when facing especially large enemies, at least not all the time. Another situation where auto-lock might be turned off is when you face a large number of small enemies simultaneously, particularly if you're in an open area where your camera could accidentally lock onto other non-combatants. When doing this, make sure not to focus for too long on the area you're attacking, as doing so will make you blind to the enemy's next attack. Whether auto-lock was done poorly on purpose or by accident, both are equally unacceptable in my eyes, and for a game that is so unique and well made in almost every other element of combat, having such a poor feature is puzzling to say the least.